opens up the trunk, nothing in the trunk.
What?
And he calls the police to report a trunk full of stolen fish.
All right, so we're here with the Midwest Legends podcast with the one and only, the Midwest legend himself, the great Charlie Berens.
Oh, stop. You're the Midwest legend yourself, you know?
I don't know about that, but one thing I was going to say, I don't know if I've ever told you this, is I think, you brought a lot of publicity to the Midwest culture. I mean, you probably realize that, right?
Well, yeah, oddly, I stumbled upon it, you know? It's kind of like when you're walking in your backyard and you stumble on a rock and you're like, that's a weird looking rock. So you start digging around it and then you find out like it's a whole like ass saber-toothed tiger, you know, or something. Because the truth of it is like I was just throwing stuff against the wall. And then, I've been doing this bit in my stand-up, you know, and then I just made a video and then it took off. And then when you do a lot of videos and nothing works, and then you see one take off, you're like, oh, you look at that rock you stumble over differently, you know?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, I think too, one of the things is besides like bringing publicity to the Midwest cultures, I think people now have embraced their Midwest culture, you know, whether it's the things that we all did that grew up, especially, you know, in Wisconsin, but throughout the Midwest. And now you've kind of made it famous nationwide. So I feel like people have embraced that live in the Midwest and are more, I wouldn't say that we weren't proud of it before, but we make a bigger deal out of it, which is fun because, you know, there was things like the Texas draw, all that kind of stuff. And now we've got Midwest culture that people know because of, you know, things like yourself that you've done. So,
yeah, thanks. I mean, I don't know that I can, in typical Midwest style, say, oh, you know, that wasn't me. No, but I mean, so much of the stuff that I was just, so much of the bit early on was just people weren't making videos about it, you know? And so many of the opes, so watch out for deer, the tell your folks they says hi, that kind of stuff. It's just like, it's things that people were doing and I was just like putting a spotlight on it. You know what I mean? So it was always there and I just put a light on it, or got lucky enough to put a light on it, you know?
Yeah, well, and I think too, one of the big things is that the basis of it comes from you growing up in Wisconsin, in the Midwest. And so you not only understand the culture, but you're part of it. And that's why I wanted to create this because not just another Midwest podcast, but something where we can tell stories about the Midwest.
I like that concept, man.
I like one of the biggest things for me and I like to talk. I mean, you and I have met many times, and I do.
You're
like
a talker.
Talk. Yeah, I'm a talker.
You're chatty Cathy.
Yeah, I'm chatty Cathy.
In a good way.
Right. And so one of the things is I always, when I grew up around, whether it was going to family events or even as a young guy being taken to the bars up north, you know, I would hear these stories and they were kind of Midwest legends in my opinion. Again, like I was saying, not like the Paul Bunyan type legends, but like talking about some guy or something that happened. You know, some of it might be embellished, some of it might be true, some of it might be straight up lie, but it was interesting stories. And it was that storytelling in the Midwest that I really enjoyed, especially from the older folks, like, you know, my great grandpa for a little bit, then my grandpa and so on. So,
wow. Yeah, you're lucky to know your great grandpa. How about that?
Just for a little while. So that was, you know.
Yeah, I knew my great grandma for just a little while too.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was smoking with oxygen on.
Really?
That's an OG right there, man.
That's one of my great aunts was the same way. She actually outlived the other folks, but she smoked until the very end. And you know, I don't know. I guess that's an OG, right?
It's an OG because, yeah, you're looking at that oxygen tank that says no open flame. And then every 5 minutes, tss, 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 you know, just running it. Well, you would know how big of a deal that is, you know, being in your business. How big of a deal is having a lighter smoking with an oxygen tank? How dangerous is that really?
That's pretty dangerous.
That's not how she died.
Well, that's good to know.
She didn't die from lung cancer either.
If I got the call and it was like, hey, there's this explosion, and I said, who did what? That's how it would be. Like, I don't think that's a good idea.
Smoking next to oxygen.
Smoking next to oxygen, right?
Yeah, because oxygen and fire, you know, anyone who's built to fire knows the magic of just
Right.
just doing. It's always great when someone doesn't like build a fire, or they're, the first time building a fire, and then you just show them the trick of just fanning it like, underneath, and just you can be like a conductor with the flame, like.
Let's kind of do that at the campfire, right? Like
Yeah.
I've showed my kids that, and then after that, next thing you know, after you taught them that, the fire's like,
right,
yeah, 5 feet tall,
right. Yes.
Fire department's showing up.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you're one of those places off the road, like, oh, I think that place is on fire. No, that's just like a biggest bonfire that I've ever seen. You ever, when you're driving a country road right at night, and you just see this massive fire out in the distance. You're like, should I call someone? Nah, that's probably just Larry. He's out there burning tires again.
Yeah.
That's sometimes what they do. You don't want burned tires, though, folks. How do we get on burning tires?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's where stuff happens out in the sticks. So I know. I was over at my brother-in-law's house. He lives kind of out in the woods a bit, and sure enough, he had one of those big piles of brush and stuff, and it's going the same way you're talking about. It's going to be a massive bonfire, I'm sure. I mean, you have to have that. It's just like it. And again, somebody might call the fire department, but it is what it is. That's just Craig there with his fire.
Oh yeah. Every year, my buddy, he's got this apple fest, and they all year they clean the brush and they put it on this big old bonfire thing, and then they hang like a straw man. They make like a scarecrow, and they put it in the middle of the thing, and then they shoot a flaming arrow at it, and that's how the bonfire starts.
That's a unique way to start a fire, but
when I tell you a story like that, are you just like, God, I am never gonna not have money, 'Cause-
as the injury lawyer.
Yeah.
But the problem is that I grew up in the same thing, so I know the unfortunate is that sometimes I'll be in a case and something negligent happened, and I can see why that happened because I may have seen that in my past as I was at that event where that was happening. Maybe a friend or a family member was engaging in that. Definitely not me because I'm the safe lawyer. But
how many like Midwest legendary stories do people tell you in your office? Like, do you know that they're full of it sometimes? Like, does anyone ever tell, and you're like, hey, you can tell me the truth, I'm your lawyer. Or how does that work? Do people lie to their lawyer? I don't know how that works.
Well, yeah, so the funny thing, because a lot of the stories that people are telling me, about their case or whatever, they're pretty factual, but there's times where like we're in a deposition or mediation or court, in between court. I'm usually trying to keep the anxiety and the nerves down. And so we'll just start, shooting the breeze a bit.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they'll tell me stories. And like I had a guy once tell me about, he worked on a ship out of I think Superior. And they stopped at a port, and then he got drunk and missed the ship. And this whole story. And part of it was sounded true, and the other part, I was like, I don't know. So it was very, very interesting. But it ended with him then catching a bus, hungover, drinking on the bus, getting kicked off the bus, getting another ride, and ending up at a different port and getting back on the ship. I don't know if that's truly what happened, but that's a story that I heard.
That sounds so confusing that it must be true.
Yeah,
you just don't question it after that. But do they if something happened and I'm calling you up and I'm just lying to you, can you tell? How do you tell if someone's lying?
That's tough. So I do a lot of stuff which whether it's somebody, I'm taking testimony in court or I'm taking testimony in a deposition, I'm asking you, you're the defendant, you injured my client, and I'm asking you questions. And one of the things that I found out, obviously there's always some embellishments and things like that, especially if it makes the person sound better. They'll tell me things, and I let them open up a bit. Mm-hmm. But I found out, whether this has been my experience, is most people in the Midwest, because that's where I practice law, when push comes to shove and they're under oath, they'll tell the truth. You just got to give them the opportunity to. And that's what's given me a lot of success. But are there side stories that I don't really, are kind of irrelevant that they get into? But I let them do a little bit of that, and then make sure on the things that matter, we're getting the truth on.
Yeah, it's like when you get a big fish on, you're like, now let him run a little. Let him run. Let him tire himself out.
That's pretty good. That's a good point. A good analogy.
Yeah, that's how you do it. Got to walk the dog, too. That's another one. Let him piss on a mailbox or two. Just get out of his system.
Yep. And I think that's what we do, at least what I do in depositions and testimony. Let them get it out, and then we get to the, all right, let's let's get past that. Or I show them a few times, like I often have like a stack of documents. And so if I'm deposing you, I'll ask you something. And then when you tell me some kind of made up story, I'll show you, well, what about this?
Brutal,
and
bro.
Once I do that once or twice, the truth usually comes out after that.
He knows that. How often is that stack of documents actual documents from, or do you have like 2 things and then the rest is just a stack?
I don't want to give away all my tips, but there's often times where the stack is a little bit bigger than.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you're padding that.
Yeah.
You know?
Because they're like, what's in that stack? They just keep looking at it. You're like, remember last time I pulled something out of that stack? You want to see.
He doesn't know that it's just socks. You know?
It's just a bunch of blank papers.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, well, so one of the things that I was hoping I could get from you is if you've got, I mean, like a good Midwest story. I mean, there's so many different things we can look at, but like, even if you can remember, like, what's a classic Midwest story from when you were a kid?
Oh yeah, of course.
Let's
got some classic Midwest stories.
I'm hoping that I can get, folks like you to give me some good stories and we can kind of share it with everybody else, almost like they were sitting at the bar with us or sitting at the family get together and they get to hear it, because I think that's the fun part, is passing these stories on to everybody.
Yeah, man. No, it's always good. It's nice talking about the stories too. I mean, that's a lot of what my stand-up is too, is just like, just these things that happen that and then really picking them apart. Like there was this one time, like me and my brother and my dad, my brothers and my dad, we went hunting, and I was just graduated. I just got off of one job. I had just gotten another job. I was like a PA on a film set, and I just got a job as being a PA at a production company.
Yeah.
And that's like production assistant. You like fix things, you get coffee, you put together IKEA furniture. We're not talking a high caliber job here,
You gotta start somewhere.
Yeah, that's where I started, exactly. But I needed a car. I didn't have a car. And so we went hunting, and, we hunted, we did the thing, we unload the guns, we put the dog in the car. And then we are riding home, and then we get home, we're unloading the car. I pull out all the guns. They're all in a case. I pull them out. One goes off. It's my brother Andy's gun, and it just annihilates the car. Turns the shotgun seat into an actual shotgun seat, blows out the bucket seat. There's little pellet holes in the front console. You can see like a little bead in there,
Jeez.
My dad came out, he was like, you just bought yourself a minivan, So that's how I got that minivan. And yeah, man, it was one of those funny things of like, at that point in time, you're like, oh no, I got a minivan, but and because my dad made me buy it, at the Kelly Blue Book level marked excellence, because there wasn't a box to check for Hasminer shotgun blast on the interior or whatever. So I bought it, and it's crazy because you're like, it's a minivan. I'm 22. I'm going to LA. You want to attract women in some way, or men, whatever it is, if it's anybody here, like whoever you are. If the royal you is going out there, you want to attract, and a minivan, for all its greatness, let's just say I had a lot of good first dates, but then as soon as I got to the point of picking them up, that's where a lot of it ended. LA is very superficial. They don't like minivans as much as you would think. But it was a nice van. I got to sleep in it, because I was like bumming around couches for a while. So like sleeping in a minivan is a pretty decent situation. Like you can get yourself like one of those camping blow up mattresses, and you sleep in it, like that feels like a bed. Honestly, because minivan, very spacious in the back, got the stow and go seats.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So this is a Dodge Grand Caravan SXT.
So I bet you then your dad made you, when you were doing the KBB, check all the different the features, right, to make sure you got the fair price on it. You get the excellent, and then you got to make sure you got every feature in there.
Oh, yeah. He was like, You think you're getting this for $1,000 just because you shot it? No, this has the stow and go. Okay. And the cool thing was, as I was driving it, you could tell if the alignment was off because or you could tell if you weren't level with the ground because the BB would go to one way or another way. You know, it was just floating around the console the whole time, man. And I'd be finding BBs. Like I would just wake up in the morning too after sleeping in it, just seeing like those little crumbs of like, what was those granola bars? The ones with the super crumbly ones.
Oh, those weren't Nature Valley.
Yeah, Nature Valley. I lived off those things. And I would just wake up and I would see like crumbs of those and I would still see little pellets from that shotgun blast, you know?
That's great.
Just a reminder of where I'd come from. It was nice.
Well, the van worked for transportation and for a living space. Maybe not so much for picking up ladies, but at least you got the.
No, I honestly, it's honestly the reason that I think I'm here today in a lot of ways, because what happened was, because I had a minivan, I was a PA, a regular PA, but since I had a minivan, the set crew, like there's sort of the production side in a production company. There's the office side, but they knew I had a minivan and I would do one day things with them just because they needed someone. And then they were moving stuff to set. He was like, I gotta rent a truck or something. I was like, no, just use my minivan. You don't even have to rent it. You know, I'll just do it. Like, I just wanted to be on set. Yeah. So that got me on set, and that got me setting up lights and setting up the camera and doing all that stuff. And because I did that, they trusted me with all the equipment. So then I would come back and I would set it up like this, and then I would shoot like my reel or whatever. And that's how I got my first job doing like entertainment news, you know.
Basically, the minivan helped make you, man.
Yeah. The van makes the man.
I think so. I think that's what we're finding out today. The van makes the man. Now I wonder, let's say you had that minivan in the Midwest and Wisconsin, maybe ladies be more attracted to it. I don't know, to you.
Minivans get a bad take.
I think
they get the bad rap, man, because I have had minivans, I've had pickup trucks, I've had little like go-kart cars, Volkswagen Rabbit, diesel, 5 on the floor.
Yeah.
45 miles per gallon. Can you believe that? 1982, they were making cars with 45 miles to the gallon.
That's pretty impressive.
It is impressive. Anyways, I'm off track already. I have ADD. But my uncle had a van, my Uncle Joel, and he got it, Honda minivan. He got it up to like, I think almost 400,000 miles.
That's pretty good for a Honda minivan. Though Hondas last pretty well. But so if you grew up in a family of 12, you guys couldn't even, what'd you do for travel? Like, did you just all stick in the minivan? Some people get a seatbelt, some people don't? Or just not ride together?
Yeah, double buckle.
Yeah, double buckle.
Yeah, we were a double buckle family. Yeah. They don't do double buckle anymore. I was with Miles doing a sketch. I was doing the double buckle, and someone who was there was a dad. They were laughing. They're like, "That's crazy," because he's got kids and stuff, or maybe he was a little younger than me. Maybe it was Jake. I forget. Someone made a comment though about it. I was like, "You guys didn't double buckle?" I thought everyone did.
Yeah, whether double buckle is super safe, but it's better than no buckle, right? That's the way I look at it.
Oh yeah,
double buckle.
Yeah,
I know my uncle had an Astro van, and we would take it from where it was like Eau Claire to the Dells, right? Because you're gonna go down to Noah's Ark, and he would just pull out or fold. I don't know if you folded down the back seats or you pulled them out, and he would just let us hang. Just hang out, man. Like they don't do that anymore either.
Yeah, I know.
He's driving in the front. You got a bunch of kids back there just hanging for the ride.
You think about it, dude, it's like a school bus.
Yeah, but there's no seats though.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, what's a seat gonna do in a school bus?
Yeah, that's
There's
true.
no seat belts.
At least you're sitting. I don't know. I think we were walking around, laying down, wrestling.
Yeah, that's cool. Like tilting it a little. That's awesome.
Back there. I'm trying to keep it in between the dishes.
Dude, that's awesome. You got, but I mean, you think like you go to Nashville or something. It's always weird with the way you think about this stuff because like you're like, yeah, you need a seatbelt all the time, but then you go to Nashville on Broadway and you see like people having like whole ass parties in the back of like a school bus that like pop the roof off of that thing. It's a bit, and then you have school buses, and why don't school buses have seatbelts again?
Yeah, I mean. believe it or not, I've had cases where kids get injured because like the bus gets hit or the bus hits something
Oh,
else.
I believe it.
And then also on the bus, like you have like teachers or paraprofessionals and they're walking around like yelling at little Stevie there, like settle down. And then they get hit and then they fly across. So
Yeah.
the rules that these rules don't apply to school buses is a little crazy, especially because they're all little kids that, your precious cargo, but there's no seatbelt rule. Though I have heard some some school buses have seatbelts. I have not personally been on one, but the cases that I've had, like if generally in Wisconsin, there's never any seatbelts. They're just, it's kind of a free for all. That's about it.
Can you believe that, dude? That's like some of the things in life that we just accept as truth.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So seatbelts are very important. They're going to be in every single car. We're going to spend so much money doing these tests. Your children cannot double buckle anymore. They have to be in these specially designed seats, Unless we're carrying like 100 kids, then just throw them in there and hope for the best.
And we're carrying them every day, morning and afternoon.
Yeah.
That's okay there. That's a good exception.
Yeah,
Like
isn't that crazy? Like I always wondered what the logic was, and I guess talking to you, I guess there's not much logic.
Yeah, I'm sure somebody will say, I know why, but I don't see the logic. I mean, you probably could put seats and maybe even double buckle them.
Well, I suppose that there's a fire,
Yeah.
and one of them kids can't get out of their seat.
Yeah, I suppose.
That'd be it.
Because they always practice, right? When did you ever ride the bus?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you had to go out the back. They'd have an evacuation, and
Yeah.
some people would pop out the back, and then someone go out the front. I think I remember doing that. I rode the bus a lot, so
Yeah.
I learned a lot of good lessons on the bus. Because back where I grew up too, the bus sometimes would have like elementary through high schoolers.
Oh, yeah.
And you always worried when the high schoolers were on the bus. They usually sat in the back. You tried to keep your distance, but sometimes you got forced back there, and you're like a fifth grader.
Yeah.
Fresh meat for the high schoolers. So
That's where I have this distinct memory of being on the bus with my buddy Eric Helene. I think it was either Helene or Helen. I forgot how you say his last name. But he was like teaching me how to say fuck, and I was teaching him how to say shit.
Really?
First grade.
Yeah. I think I learned a lot of really, not only some good language like that, like some funny like nursery rhymes that were like not nursery rhymes.
Oh yeah, like Andrew Dice Clay type stuff.
Yes, right?
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff. And
about the man from Nantucket.
yeah, all those things, right?
Yeah.
And then I actually, for a while, one of my bus drivers, her kid rode on the bus, which found out real soon, like he's a nice guy, but he generally would tell his mom he was kind of
He's a rat.
Oh, he's a rat, yeah.
What was his name?
Josh.
Josh the rat.
Yeah, Well, he went by Joshua.
Joshua the rat. Joshua, that's a tough. I want him to be named like Timmy the rat, or Jimmy.
He was
Jimmy
a nice
the
guy.
rat.
I think his mom just put the pressure on him. But that bus, one of the best story I remember on that bus is one time I was probably in elementary school. The high schoolers in the back are getting rowdy. Well, I don't know what's going on. The bus driver drives to her house and gets her, and like her husband looked like the guy, like Dan Arnold, like a real big guy, so she calls in reinforcements. He gets on the bus and goes back there. Like the bus just pulls up at her house. I didn't know it was her house. And then he just gets on the bus and goes and deals with it. So
Oh, really?
that's the old school. That was before they had like, the cameras and bus monitors.
Oh,
You just go pick up your husband or your wife or whatever and let them lay down the law.
Yeah, that was back when you could hit someone else's kid.
Right. He probably had a battle. Who knows?
Yeah, right.
I just looked away. I just kept looking forward. I'm not involved. I'm just a fifth grader.
It'd be funny to see like a timeline of when like all that, kind of stopped, because the nuns, man, they were smacking
bet.
kids around for a while.
Yeah.
My brother got a book thrown at him for playing the piano wrong,
Yeah, I didn't go to Catholic school, but my father-in-law did, and he had a lot of stories like just getting hit with rulers and stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's probably your experience. Maybe you were well behaved though. You didn't have to deal with any of that. You're just
Nah,
perfect student.
I was just good at weaseling my way out of trouble. Yeah, I did some public, some private, and yeah, the public's or the private, that's where you get those
You were a smooth talker.
Yeah, but I didn't. I don't think they were doing the ruler on the knuckles. It was, they were kind of just phasing that out there.
That's it. See, you're talking about the different phases. So obviously, in his generation, he was born in like the 50s. And then about the time you got there, it's phasing out.
Yeah, late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
But that kind of stuff. It's like fashion. You know, it takes a while to get to the Midwest.
Yeah, right. All right, so you gave me a good story about, you could almost say it's a hunting story, but what's a good fishing story you have?
Fishing story. Okay, so my grandpa Bob's out with my Uncle Dave. They're out fishing. And my grandpa Bob's muskie fishing. So he's got big old muskie lure on. He goes back to cast and he goes, "Thump," and he goes, "Dave, you see my lure?" And Dave's like, "I see half of it," you know, because it was stuck right between his deal.
Yeah.
He just had a bucktail and blood hanging down his nose, you know. And he goes, "Oh, shoot," takes him to the hospital. And the doctor says, "Okay, all right, give me 1 second." Doesn't go get a scalpel or whatever the hell they use. He goes to the janitor's broom closet, gets a pliers, and goes, pulls it straight out. And, you know, he says, "Why did you do that?" I said, "It looked like a nice lure. I didn't want to ruin it for your dad." And it sounds like that didn't happen, dude. He cut the barbs. He took it out the normal way. No. You look at Dave, he's got these scars right here. Looks like a field goal post on his, above his eyes, you know.
Hey, I believe it, because if he's got the actual physical scarring, and I can tell you, one of my kids hooked my other kid. They were practicing in the yard. I don't know. I mean, you want to practice casting, maybe you don't.
I get it,
but
been there.
so he hooked it. It got stuck in one of their legs. I couldn't get it out, and I thought I didn't. And he was in pain. So fortunately for me, the hospital is like a mile away.
Yeah.
I got there, and they asked me, "Do you want me to save the lure or not?"
Yes,
so there you go.
dude. Yes, they're still doing it. That's
Right?
good.
So I think there's some credibility to this story. Not only did you have the physical scarring, but I firsthand have seen that option by the emergency personnel.
That's hilarious, man.
That's only Wisconsin, maybe.
Yeah, it's probably only in Wisconsin. Also, like, that's a pretty easy to replace part of the lure. You know what I mean? Like, I suppose in the case of like a bucktail, but there are some cases where that's not easy. Like when you've got that, not a daredevil, but one of them nice weedless spoons.
Yeah.
Yeah, you cut that, the whole spoon's gone. And in that case, I would say, you know, I'm sorry, you're gonna have a scar. I mean, especially if it's your best lure.
Yeah, that's true.
Like there's this one weedless spoon, silver weedless spoon that my grandpa Bob caught a muskie on in Canada, and just, you know, that was always a spoon we would fight over using.
That's like the lucky one that you got to. So you'd have to save that at all costs, even if it meant that somebody's gonna have some physical pain. If they
Yeah. They like if that one got lost in a tree or down, like you're going in for it, you know?
Yeah.
Like there could be like a log under there that could trap you for life, but I mean,
It's a good lure.
should have thought about that before you weren't reeling in fast.
Right. That's a good point. You should have thought of that through, and he didn't. And now there's repercussions, and it's not going to be good.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't just get caught on a log. It's a weedless spoon. You had to let it fall to the bottom. That's your own issue.
That's your issue. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. I mean, and this was before, Ed the Diver we knew about.
Yeah, so now you could have Ed the Diver take care of that, because the people just call him and say, "Hey, Ed, I had some idiot on my boat. They lost a cell phone," and Ed's like, "I'll be there." He just takes care of it. And it was like, "Hey, Ed, prize lure. I was gonna make my firstborn swim down and get it, but I got you." So, and then Ed shows up and saves the day. I mean, think about how many people he saved the day for.
Seriously, it's incredible.
I know I got a big pile of lures from him. And then one of my kids, so he sent me all these lures and he drops them off. And some of my kids are really into fishing, but not so much into proper placement of fishing tackle and things like that. And so there's like a little bench in my kind of mudroom area, and I'm in a hurry and it's dark, and I go to put my shoe on. I sit down and I feel this pinch like right on my, I'm trying to think, in my butt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
you got a lure in the ass.
yeah, I managed to get it out myself.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Just pull it. Still got a scar?
Because I don't know. I guess I
haven't been checking?
I haven't been checking. But, that's one, too, where I decided that, one, I was in a hurry, I need to get it out. And two, I don't know if I want to hobble to the emergency room and then have to go through that embarrassment of like.
No. I've pulled lures just straight out of my hand before. I mean, just because it's such a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And then, you put some like hydrogen peroxide in it and some Neosporin and hope for the best,
Yeah.
you know?
That's how you got to do it. I mean, sometimes you got to make it work.
Yeah.
So, question. So, this is the Midwest Legends podcast. We already know you're a Midwest legend, but there's Midwest legends that have become before you. And so, when you think of a Midwest legend, what's like the first person that you know or have known that comes to mind?
I'd say Bob Uecker, because Bob Uecker, sort of like, obviously he's a legendary Brewers player, but more announcer, and he's was in Milwaukee for so much of his life, and he people knew him from Brewers games, but also like I'd be cleaning the garage with like my grandpa Bob,
Yep.
who's like, there's another Midwest legend right there. And what would be on would be like Bob Uecker,
Yeah.
Just you got the game on. And so it's sort of like the soundtrack to a lot of chores, is Bob Uecker. And kind of it brings you back,
It does. I think my dad would agree with you. My dad, big Bob Uecker guy, and when because we have a partnership with the Brewers, and so we got to go there, and the one person he wanted to meet was Bob Uecker, but Bob Uecker was like, I don't know, there was something going on that day, and so he couldn't, and he was just disappointed. But he's the same guy. Whenever we're out doing work, the Brewers are playing. And then I've got a cabin, a little kind of cabin that I have up north. And the guy that used to live next to me, he was up there older, and his kids must have gotten older. So he was usually up there by himself fishing and stuff. And I could always know when he's working, is hear the Brewers playing Bob Uecker's voice, So I hear you. The true Midwest legend.
Yeah. We were doing this was years ago when the Manitowoc just started. We were doing something with the the Wisconsin National Guard, and they were doing a refueling mission. So they brought up like a few people, like I was there and Bob Uecker was there, and there were like Bango was there, and all this sort of stuff. Where like, I don't know, they do like a publicity kind of a thing. So, but I'm sitting there on this plane, this like refueling cargo plane with Bob Uecker for like, I don't know, a couple hours. And they got like this ladder on the floor, right? Like strapped to the floor, and he tripped over it. And he's older at that point, so everyone's a little concerned. But he trips, he gets up, he goes, we'll put a ladder on the floor, which is a really fair question, to be honest.
That's fair, very fair. Well, that must have been pretty fun to hear him like in person, sitting there with him, knowing that voice was probably a soundtrack to a lot of stuff when you were a kid, right?
Yeah.
Cool, but in true fashion, who the
swing and a miss.
So, but I only a few more things. I know you're a busy guy, but one of the things that I wanted to get from you, if you give me one, and you kind of already did, but what's a good Grandpa Bob story? Because that guy is a Midwest legend. I mean, I've heard a little bit, some stories in the past. I knew from what I've heard in the past, he's from Fond du Lac. You guys used to go fishing up north, probably north of 8 somewhere, I think. Was that?
Yeah, we would go up to White Sand Lake.
Is that like Villiers County?
Yeah, I could tell you.
It's up north of Minocqua, right?
Yeah, good walleye spot though, real good. And
Are you giving away a walleye spot on the podcast?
I'm not telling you where on the lake.
I just want to know if I needed to edit.
Everyone knows that lake's got walleye.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to make sure you didn't. If I need to edit it out, if you gave that away, or maybe I just write it down and put it in my pocket. But
no, if I were telling you a good walleye spot, you wouldn't be trusting it, because I like to throw people off the course.
it's good gamesmanship.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. You're already 2 steps ahead of me. Like, oh, here's a good walleye spot, and I'm up there going, this is the worst spot ever. And you're laughing as you see me as you saw me launching my boat. No, this guy's never gonna get it.
When it comes to walleyes, I play chess. Usually checkers. Walleyes, chess.
You gotta.
Yeah.
You get a spot. You can't give that away.
Yeah. No, but I mean, we would go up there, and that's where I learned like a lot of my that's where like so much of the Manitowoc Man character came from. Like my grandpa Bobby would just do these little things of like I don't know, I was 9, 10 years old, 11, I don't really remember, something in that
Yeah.
late boy, early adolescence kind of thing. And I was like, Grandpa, what's that jug for? Or what's that jug? He had a big jug of Carlo Rossi.
Yeah.
And he said, that's called Grandpa forgot his sleeping pills, you know? So you just say things like that and walk away, not you know.
Yeah.
There was this, oh man, we had this, we were doing lunch, you know, and his idea of lunch was just like a box of donuts and, you know, and butter, you know, and he was just sitting there buttering his donut, you know, like who butters
Yeah, I
a
was gonna say,
donut?
who does that?
That's half the ingredients already. I mean, it would just do so many, like, okay, I was doing this show. This was early on in the Manitowoc Minute days, and I had just put out a video. I'd put out a few videos with my grandpa Bob at that point, and we had gone muskie fishing and all that. And then there was a video of him in the show, and this was in Fond du Lac, you know, where he grew up and everything. And so it was a cool thing, I think, for him. And then halfway through the show, there's an intermission, and he's in the stall, you know, and or he's at the urinal, and he's sitting there peeing. And this other guy comes up to him and goes, "Hey, you're Grandpa Bob." And he goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "Nice to meet you." And I see my Grandpa Bob. I was in there. My Grandpa Bob looks at him. I'm like, "What's going to happen here?" And he just shakes his hand, you know, from the willy to the deal, you know, because he was holding a beer in the other hand. I forgot to tell you that much.
That makes sense. I mean, you're gonna hit it. You got to do that. But I don't know. I've seen handshake at the urinal before. That's
You never seen, well, you never had my drunk fans, I guess, because it was one of the fans at the show that extended a hand at the urinal. I had not seen it either.
your grandpa Bob, obviously a man of the people. Like he's not gonna turn down a
yeah.
handshake. He's not gonna leave a guy hanging. So even he's got right
No, he
from
left
the,
himself hanging.
Yeah, you're right.
With a handshake,
But
you know?
the hand comes right off. Just doing business. To there you are.
Yeah.
Solid though.
Yeah, I mean, he's just like a very, very like everything he did, like his recreationally, what he would do, he would obviously go out on Lake Winnebago fishing, or he would go like hold court with his buddies, either at the like over at the park.
Yeah.
They would just sit around and bullshit and fish. And that was like it was like just their circle of guys. They would be out there with lawn chairs, or he would just sit in a lawn chair just outside of his garage and just look at the street, you know. And he'd be like, "I used to sit here and count the cows. Now I count the cars." And he's like, and then a biker goes by. He's like, "What the fuck is that guy wearing?" You know? So it's just like it was small things like that. It wasn't even like I mean, he did a bunch of. You know, he's got some of those crazy stories and all that too. And you know, they didn't have a lot of money, and they raised like 7 kids in kind of a smaller spot in Fond du Lac. So they got a lot of those stories growing up. But yeah, it's really those small moments that kind of make you just, you know, really like. You know, find that the heart of the Midwest.
Right.
It's in it. You don't even have to look too far. And I'm just saying that about my grandpa Bob because it's like I think everybody can look at their grandparents and see the exact same thing. You know, and it's not like you gotta. Do anything crazy or whatever, but it's in those really small moments where you're like, oh, that's so him, you know? And those are the things that a lot of people like to share, you know?
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, that's how a lot of things I remember from my grandparents, just little things instead of something big that we did, you know, it was just hanging out with my grandpa had this like old beat up, like '80s caddy and he just smoked cigarettes like it was going out of style.
Yeah.
And we were riding there and he's smoking. I can still smell the cigarettes. And he put his big dog in the back. And he'd be like, I think we got it. We'd always have to go, run errands, right? But he always wanted to stop at Dairy Queen. And he'd get like a big, just like vanilla cone. And then he'd take a lick and he'd pass it to the dog. And the dog take, and I'm just like, jeez.
And he'd lick it after?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's like, and one time I had it, so because I would stay sometimes in the summer with my grandpa, and I had to go, like, I can't remember if I needed to go to something, I had to go to the doctor for like some normal appointment. And I said, I told my mom, I'll just go to the one up by her or by him. And she's like, okay. So I set up an appointment. So he's like, hey, we got to run some errands. And like true grandpa form, we're like driving so slow. We're doing all these things. So I get back to his house and I'm just flooring it to get there. And then the lady, I don't know if it was like a doctor or a nurse practitioner, she is just chewing me out about being an irresponsible, like, teenage guy. And I didn't have that. It's like, I was on my grandpa time. I mean, you don't know all the things we had to do, all the cigarettes that had to be smoked. So, but like to your point, it's just the little things you remember, just going with it, just being out, like with my grandpa, I'd be snowmobiling and we'd be out on the river, right? We'd stop because he'd always got to take a smoke break. Right? And then he's like, we gotta take a piss right now. Oh, okay, yeah. He's like, now's a good time. And then he looks down and goes, and I didn't know I was taking a piss that much. I think the ice is, basically the water's coming up. So we jump. But, I can just picture him. He's not even worried, though. He's got the cigarette hanging out. He's doing his business, and the water's coming up, and he's making a joke like that. And I'm going, it doesn't look very safe right now.
Yeah.
So it's classic grandpa things, like not too worried, pretty witty,
Right.
Just
it's like the wit was sharpened at the bars over the years, those guys telling stories about like fishing stuff,
right?
But just like one-upping each other with the bullshit. That's kind of how you get that kind of. That's how you get that thing.
Well, and I think they become such polished storytellers too, that every story that you hear is so engaging, and you just kind of, and then on top of it, like to your point, there'd be like just quick things that he would say, and sometimes they're witty, but often they had wisdom in them too, and it was that's when I think of kind of like that, the Midwest legends. I think of people like that too. It's just you spend a little bit of time with them, and it's like you look back, and like, man, that was great.
Yeah, and you ask yourself almost, why is that? And I think it's because these guys, especially then, would like they'd spend a lot of time in the bar, and they would like. You got it's loud. You got a big group of guys. You're having a conversation. It's almost like how we grew up with like 12 kids there all the time.
Yep.
If you're going to say something, there's not a lot of time to sit there and think about it. You got to get it in, sharpen it, get it out.
Right.
But I think that's why they became such good storytellers with so many fun quips. And also, I think like, what made them different is that's how they were entertaining themselves. There weren't like TVs in bars. They were entertaining themselves by telling stories, And whereas now I think which sucks is you go to a bar and it's like, like even I do the thing with Miles. Obviously, the Bellied Up podcast, and Miles hates it when there's a TV in the bar. I'm guilty of it because there's a TV in the bar where they're doing those dumb tricks or whatever.
Yep.
And you can ease up my ADD, like dummy brain. Not that ADD of you guys. I mean, you're dumb. I have a dummy brain, but I'll just sit there and I'll like stare at it,
Yep.
And I don't even catch myself. I'm like, why am I dividing my attention? They didn't have any of that stuff to divide their attention. And so it was just you'd almost become a mini stand-up comedian a little bit,
I think that's a super valid point, because I remember the source of entertainment was stories and bar die, right?
Yes,
that was all that. You just there's bar dice games and that's it. And then there was I think some people would even play cribbage, but it was all conversations. The bartender would jump in not just to ask you what you want, but like to throw something or listen to the story, right? So I think that the whole social aspect of then also having to be concise with it. Like you got to have that punchline or nobody's going to listen to you.
Right.
You're just going to be the one at the end.
Yeah. And then you're thinking about it when you're working, like, how do I get these guys,
Right.
And it always starts with, I got a story for you. I got one for you. Are you ready? You know, like, are you ready? I got an uncle who says that all the time. So, are you ready? You know, I'm like, it's almost like buckle in, you know?
Yep.
Like, I got a 2-minute set for you. Are you ready? You know? But it's interesting to see that change. And hopefully that the value of that comes back.
Well, I think too of what you're doing. I mean, like it's part of the stand-up stuff that you're doing is telling stories, right? I mean, obviously you're making sure the punchline delivers because you got to keep everybody entertained, right? I mean, so that's part of it too. You're kind of carrying on that process, you know, as well.
Yeah, I'm doing that right now. It's not an easy thing to do, you know? But it's because you just got done with one tour, now doing another. And yeah, I mean, it's you got respect for these guys, you know, because they have these funny, just quippy things, and it's and you know they do it. In my upcoming special, I got a bunch of stuff that my grandpa Bob did say that I wasn't gonna say here, but like the guy had punchlines, you know,
Right.
He was like a comic in of his own regard. You know, he used to shake his hips quite a bit. That was his thing.
Really?
He liked to dance like Elvis.
Okay.
And he would say, I got up there on the bar, or Elvis got up there and shook and he got famous. I got up there on the bar and shook and I got arrested. You know, that's kind of how he would do it. But yeah, apparently the guy could dance pretty good, you know.
Right. Well, that's awesome because I think that's the whole thing is like something like that is so funny, right? And then you're able to share that with generations of people. The problem that you have is you don't just start looking at, you know, you got 5 or 10 minutes. You got what, 45 minutes, an hour.
Yeah, you got an hour
of where you got to keep delivering all of those things.
Yeah.
But you have a little bit of the undivided attention because you're the only one hopefully talking. We
That's
get a few
true.
hecklers, but
that's true.
at the bar, you got that competition, everybody trying to jump in. I know even with fishing stories, I've seen some guys go, tell me that, and don't bullshit me. You know, it's always like stuff like how you're like setting them up. Like, I want to know like what really did you catch there? And you're like, oh, let me tell you about it. And you already know it's gonna be like 5 inches larger than what anybody caught. But that's always the stories.
Dude, my great grandpa Ray, man, he went to the bar and he was like, they're like, Ray, what'd you catch today? He's like, I got a trunk full of them. And they're like, really? Yeah, I got a trunk full of walleye, got bluegill in there, crappie. Couple northern, the whole day just going on and on.
Yeah.
They were like, bullshit, Ray. He's like, no, I'll show you. And then, they were like, all right, let's see it. So he takes them out, opens up the trunk, nothing in the trunk.
What?
And he calls the police to report a trunk full of stolen fish. So...
That's good
great Grandpa Ray. That's the lineage. I mean, that's how far you'll take the lie.
Dude, that's a Midwest legend right there. That one story tells me that's a Midwest legend.
Yeah, yeah.
Great Grandpa Ray.
Yo, yeah. Also, clearly, they did not have the same DNR restrictions back in the day either.
Because you don't want to be bragging about that stuff.
No, yeah, that's poaching fish.
Yeah, if the police show up, you might have another problem. And it's not good, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. All right, I got one last question because we are, I grew up in Wisconsin, you grew up in Wisconsin, and everybody knows that, especially coming summer, you got the migration of folks from Illinois up to Wisconsin.
Oh,
right?
sure.
Right? And so I grew up hearing the term fib, even though I've run into a lot of nice Illinois folks here and there, depends on, I guess, what their allegiance is to who. But I want to know what is your favorite story about running into someone from Illinois in Wisconsin, if you have one. If there's a story that you can remember that is just like classic Illinois.
Yeah, running into someone in Illinois.
I can tell so obviously we all know because any Bears fan will tell you 1985 was the year of the best team ever, right? And so when I grew up, I think I remember like early 90s, even mid 90s, just in that age. So I was born in 81. So I was in middle school, then almost getting into high school. And I have stories. I can remember the guys coming up from Illinois. And I swear that, back then, my exposure to folks from Illinois before that was like the Saturday Night Live skit, The Bears, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't know if it was because of the success Ditka had or the SNL skit, but I swear every guy that I ran into sounded like that and had a mustache. It was like, what are you, Coach Ditka? So that I remember that a lot. I do remember them coming up and having good stories, like being, what my experience has been, folks from Illinois are pretty excited to be up in the North Woods, and they had their own stories. But I was wondering if you had any stories.
Well, I do remember there was this one time I was driving in this, brought it up before, the Volkswagen Rabbit, and this is a smelly diesel old car or whatever, but I camoed it up and I put it in some videos, and so some people knew it, because it was a spray painted camo Volkswagen Rabbit.
Pretty unique, probably.
Yeah, you'll see it. If you see it, if you've seen it once and you see it again, you know it. So there's this guy, and he's from Illinois, but he's in this drop top, some sort of situation, some kind of convertible, not a super flashy one, but like a Sebring or something.
Right.
And he drives up, he goes, "Hey." And I go, "Oh, hey." He's like, "I like your videos." I was like, "Thanks." He's like, "I'm a Bears fan." I was like, "Okay." He's like, "You want to go over to my..." This is on the highway. We're having this conversation because I had to have the windows down in that car, because if they were tight, you would gas yourself out there. You always had to drive with
proper
the windows
ventilation.
down. Yeah. And he's like, "Do you want to come over to my lake house? It's this next exit." And I was like, "No." I said no, but it's one of the biggest regrets. I mean, I should have gone,
You probably would have a pretty good story.
I would have a much better story than right now. And that's why I'm almost saying it as a life lesson at the end of this podcast. If you're ever driving down the highway and some fib in a rig top asks you to come to his lake house, say yes. Say yes. Because then you might be on a podcast one day and be able to entertain people at the end of that podcast instead of just giving them this. Say yes.
Say yes. All right.
That work?
That works. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming, man.
You bet. Absolutely.
Thanks for the stories. Hey, wait, don't head out just yet. Do you have a story that's so Midwest it couldn't have happened anywhere else? Or do you know a Midwest legend in your own life? Give me a call at 866-MWLEGND. Your story may be featured on our future episode or on our socials. Looking forward to hearing your Midwest legends.